Okay, so initially this session is meant for us to look at how to now find an angle using the cosine rule, the sine rule. Okay, remember this question, it will come in just two formats. It's either you'll be asked to uh, find an angle or a side. And what you are going to use to do that, it's either you're going to use the cosine rule or the sine rule. So in the previous session, we looked at how to find a distance using the sine rule. And in this session, we are going to look at how to find an angle using the sine rule. But for those that missed, we are going to do one question from the previous assignment, because I just want to bring you up to speed. Yeah, and I also noticed that the video that I recorded didn't have sound, so you people were unable to actually follow through. So we'll just redo the last example. Okay, and then we'll look at today's business, which is basically how to find an angle using the sine rule. So before we go to that one, for those who didn't make it, under the sine rule, we have what is called the triangle notation. Okay, I hope you're able to see clearly. So when it comes to the triangle notation, we're taught to say the angles are named using capital letters. You can see here there's A. Let me just get the correct marker. Angles are named using capital letters, and then sides are named using small letters. Okay, so there's an angle here named using C there as a capital letter. There's another angle there. There's also another angle there. Okay, the angle at A is this one. The angle at C is that one. The angle at B is that one. Okay, so capital letters, whenever you see a capital letter in your formula, it simply means that is an angle, not a side. Okay, and then when it comes to the sides are named using small letters. Okay, so the small letters are basically going to be captured from the corresponding angle. For example, the side corresponding to angle A. Okay, imagine this is an eye, the angle at A. Imagine it is an eye. Where is it facing? It's facing in this direction. Okay, therefore this side is going to be named using a small letter A because it is corresponding with the angle at A. All right, the angle at B right here, where is it facing? It's facing in this direction. Therefore this side is corresponding with that particular angle, which is angle B. So this side will be named with a small letter B. Okay, the angle at C here facing in this direction. Okay, therefore this side here is corresponding with this angle at C, and so it will be named with a small letter C. So all small letters represent sides, all capital letters represent angles. Now when it comes to the cosine rule, we are going to be using when it comes to the sine rule, you're going to be using ratios to find either the angles or the sides, depending on what the question requires. So these ratios you have up here are meant to be used when you're finding a side. What you're finding is usually on top here, on the first ratio. So by ratios, I mean this expression here. Okay, this is the same as A to sine A, which is expressed as a fraction still, like we are seeing down here. Okay, so there are these three ratios here. So the side opposite, there is an angle there. So side over sine angle, again side over sine angle, which is, as you've noticed here, this is small letter A, capital letter A, small letter B, capital letter B, and then small letter C, capital letter C. So all these ratios represent the three sides and the three angles of a triangle. So I also did mention in the previous session that when we're dealing with with trigonometry paper 2, we're going to be dealing with scalene triangles. Okay, you remember the time we're looking at bearings, I did an introduction to triangles where we looked at right angle triangles, equilateral triangles, and isosceles triangles, and then we also looked at scalene triangles. Okay, so in this case we're going to be dealing with these types of triangles, which are called scalene triangles. Therefore, the triangle notation applies to scalene triangles. So we said what you are finding is usually placed on top here, okay, on the first ratio. So here, let's say we are finding the angle at what is the side A, meaning right under that you're going to have sine A. Okay, the angle will be down here. Side on top, angle down here. Side on top, angle down here. So as you can notice here, we have three ratios. Okay, this is ratio 1 right there, and then this one is ratio 2, and then this one is ratio 3. Okay, but for this particular question, you're only going to be using two ratios at a time. So if you're finding the angle at A, meaning you're just going to use these two ratios. Okay, and from these two ratios, you will be given the angle corresponding to the side you are finding. You also be given a side and its corresponding angle. That is one thing that's going to help you know to say here I can use the sine rule to solve this question. Okay, from these three ratios you can see you need to know at least three values. You need to know the angle corresponding to the side you are finding. We said what we are finding is side A. Okay, so the angle corresponding to that side is given. You also need to know this guy here, the side and its corresponding angle. You need to know these three in order for you to use the sine rule. All right, sometimes these three may not be known right from the start, but there will be maybe a provision for you to find, for example, like an angle. Okay, maybe you could know this one, you could know this angle here, but you could not know the B here. Okay, for which maybe there's something you can do, like maybe using the set notation or something to find the angle at B. So that is basically that. If you are finding side B here, it simply means you're going to use these three ratios. And from these three ratios, you need to know the angle corresponding to the side you are finding. You need to know at least another side and its corresponding angle. And then you can be able to solve. You will see how we're going to solve the first question using these ratios. Okay? And then this one down here, these ratios down here are simply meant to be used when you are finding an angle. Remember we said what you are finding should be on top. Okay? For the first ratio here. So you can see here there's an angle. So it simply means here we're finding an angle, and so we are also going to just use these two ratios. Okay, and similarly from this one we need to know the side corresponding to the angle we're finding. We also need to know another angle and its corresponding side. So for example, it is usually like this. Okay, you have something like this that you're going to use. Okay, and let's say you also have something like this. This is forming how many ratios? Two ratios. So you need to know at least 1, 2, and 3 in order for you to find the angle there. Okay, if you are dealing with a side, then you will need to know at least from this that I've sketched, you need to know at least this guy here, you need to know this guy here and that guy there in order for you to find A there. Okay, so it's more like you just cross them like this, because side opposite angle. Okay, you can notice even when it comes to B, they are like this. Okay, so you need to know at least one of those values. Let me just draw it properly. From here you need to know one of them, and then you need to have one side where you know both the angle and corresponding side. So meaning we need to know this one and this one in order for us to find either one of these two. Okay, so if we are finding B here, meaning we need to know this guy here. Okay, if we are finding we know the angle at B. Okay, if we know the angle at B here, then that's when we can find that one. The idea is from every ratio you need to know from the two ratios that you're going to use, you need to know at least three things. Okay, so that is basically that. So now for a start, we're going to go back to the last example we looked at in the previous session. Okay, let me also go through the formulas again. So in paper 2 we'll be given some formulas. As you can see here, this is under trigonometry on the list of formulas, and these are basically the ratios we're looking at. Okay, so you just need to know how to flip them around. So according to these ratios we've been given, these are meant for finding the sides, because that is what is on top here, it's a side. Okay, if you're finding an angle, you just flip them. The denominators become the numerators. Okay, and then this one is used for finding the cosine rule, which is what we're going to look at in the next session. Okay, then there's this formula down here. So this formula is used to find the area of a scalene triangle. You remember by the time we're looking at a right angle triangle, the area was found using this formula. Okay, for a scalene triangle, this is the formula we're going to be using, which is area is equal to 1 over 2 BC sine A. So this formula applies both for the sine rule and the cosine rule. Okay, and you remember I said small letters represent sides, therefore B and C are representing sides here, and then this A is a capital, so it's representing an angle. All right, but for the sake of this lesson, since we have calculators, instead of saying 1 over 2 here, we're going to say 0.5. Okay, BC, and then sine A. This is the formula we're going to be using to find the area of a scalene triangle. So we can now look at our first example. Maybe before we proceed, could there be any questions? If you have a question, please, you can type in the chat, or you can raise your hand and then I'll give you an audience so that you can unmute your mic and ask your question. So I'm just doing this for the sake of those who missed last time's class, so that we can now proceed to today's business. So please pay particular attention. Your friends already covered most of these things. It's more like just some form of a refresher for them. Okay, since there's no question, we can now proceed to the question. So the question says, in triangle PQR below, QR is 36.5. Okay, so QR, Q is there, R is there. The distance is 36.5 meters. And then angle PQR. So when you're told to say angle PQR, it is basically this angle in the middle here, the angle at Q. Okay, so the angle at Q here we're told is what? 36 degrees, and it is that angle you can see there. Okay, angle QPR, QPR, the angle at P. So you go to point P. What is the angle there? It is 46 degrees. As you can see, it says 46 degrees. And now what are they asking us to find? Okay, they're asking us to calculate the distance PQ, which is this distance here. So the first thing you're going to do before you start solving is you're going to name this triangle using the triangle notation. So this is angle what? Angle R. Okay, if you are going to think of it as an eye, where is it facing? This side. Okay, therefore this side is going to be named using a small letter R. Okay, this is angle what? Angle Q, facing in this direction. Therefore this side is going to be named using a small letter Q. All right, this one is angle P up here, facing which line? This one here. Therefore that side will be named using a small letter P. All right, so once you do that, then you can now figure out which rule you are going to use, because the question will not state to say this question you need to answer it using the cosine rule or the sine rule. It is you who is going to figure out which rule you are going to use based on the information you will be provided with in the question. So you need now to investigate the question. You know, to say for me to use the sine rule, I need to know at least one side and its corresponding angle. So do you have any side that is known and its corresponding angle in this triangle? Yes, you have that. Okay, this side here and this corresponding angle are both given. All right, therefore here you can use the sine rule. Okay, so now how then can you use the sine rule? What are they asking to find? They're asking us to find PQ, which is represented by what? By R. Now the sine rule states that whatever you are finding, the corresponding value, so since here we're finding the side, we need to know its corresponding angle. The corresponding angle to that side is this one, but we don't know it yet. Okay, is there a way we can know it? Yes, there is a way. How can we know it? We can use the properties of a triangle. We said the time we're looking at triangles in was that bearings. Okay, one of the properties of a triangle is that the interior angles of a triangle add to 180 degrees. So whenever you're given two interior angles of a triangle, you can find the remaining angle there by simply adding these two, and then the answer you find, you subtract from 180. So I'm going to say 46 plus 36. Okay, what does that give us? It gives us a 2 there. 6 plus 6 is 12, remainder 1. 4 plus 3 is 7, plus 1, that is 8. Then we simply say 180 minus 82. So that the angle we find is now going to be the angle for R there. Okay, we get a 1 from there. We have a 7. This is a 10. 10 minus 2 is 8. 7 minus 17 minus 8, that is 9. So meaning the angle at R is 98. Let me use this one here for that one. So here we have 98 degrees. Okay, let's see where has that gone. Okay, let me try to drag it up here. So let me put it in bold and also increase size a little, then drag it to this side so that I can put it right here. So our angle there is 98 degrees. Okay, so for the symbol for the angle, I don't think I'll be able to write it down, so we can just proceed like that. Okay, please mute your mics. Okay, so we have found the angle at R. Therefore, we can now find the side R. So how are we going to form the ratios now? We said whatever it is you're finding should be on top. So meaning this R should be right on top. So we're going to say R over what? Sine the angle corresponding with R. What is the angle? It's the angle at R. Okay, so we're going to say sine R equals, now you need to pick a side that has a corresponding angle given. So the side that has a corresponding angle given is this one here. Okay, P, so meaning it's going to be a small letter P on top over sine P, because you have been given P and the angle P. That's how you form your ratio. And then simply plug in those values and solve, and you'll be good to go. Okay, I was hearing some feedback. Please, whoever it is that has a mic that's on, please mute it. Okay, so once we do that, we simply now start plugging in the values. We're trying to find R. So we're going to say R is equal to R over sine. There's a capital here, meaning it's an angle. What is the angle at R? It is 98. So we're going to say sine 98, which is equal to, here there is a P, small letter, that's a side. What's the side at P? 36.5. So I'm going to say 36.5 over sine, that's a capital letter P. You go to angle P there, it is 46. So I'm going to put 46 there. Okay, and then the shortcut I showed the other class is that initially here you're supposed to cross multiply in order for you to make R the subject. But the simplest is simply get this value and then you multiply it with the numerator up there. So meaning it's going to be 36.5 times sine 98. And then you maintain the denominator, which is sine 46. Okay, now we have made R the subject. At this point, we can now punch what we have up here. So on your calculator, we're going to say 36.5 times sine 98. 36.5 times sine 98. You press equals. The answer you're going to find should be a decimal, and then you divide by sine 46, which is a denominator there. Sine 46. Okay, that gives me 50. So R will be equal to 50.247163 4716343. Okay, and then when we round it off, it's going to give us 50.2. Then you check in the question what units are they using. They're using meters. You can see here it says 36.5 meters, therefore it's going to be 50.2 meters as the distance at R. So here at R we have 50.2 meters, and you are done. Do you have any questions? Especially for those who missed last time's class, we are doing this for you. Do you have any questions? Don't want to leave anybody behind. Okay, is there any question? Okay, since there's no question, we now proceed to the next one. I'm sure those of you who attended last session, you are now able to identify the pattern. Okay, they'll ask you to find either the side or the angle. Then the next question, find the area of the triangle. The next question, find the shortest distance. This is the format they'll be using for all your questions. This is the format they have been using for all the past exam papers. Okay, find either a side or an angle, followed by the area of the triangle, and then the shortest distance. Okay, then of course you're going to have either this one for simplifying an algebraic fraction, and then, or it will be that one for a difference of two squares. So that's how this question is structured. So I tell you to say, when you're solving mathematics papers, it's more like past papers, it's more like you have a legal leakage. Okay, not that illegal and people pay for. Okay, because this will give you a guide on how they bring questions. Free guide. It's just up to you to pay attention to it and be able to know it. In that way, it will be easy for you to figure out how to pass this and get a distinction 1. So we have found the side PQ. We now go to the next question where we're asked to find the area of a triangle. So now, whenever we're asked to find the area of any given triangle, let's say this is triangle ABC. There's A there, there's B there, there's C there. Let's say here you have 60 degrees, there you have 40, and then here you have 80 degrees. Okay, then here you have 7 centimeters, here you have 8 centimeters, and then here you have 9 centimeters. When you're asked to find the area of the triangle, remember the formula is area is equal to 0.5. Remember I said we're not going to use the 1/2. 0.5 times BC times sine A. Okay, B and C are small letters, therefore they represent sides. Okay, so this guy is corresponding to this one here, the angle at A, therefore we'll call this small letter B. This guy here corresponding to the angle at C, therefore we'll call it small letter C. And then this side here corresponding to the angle at A, therefore it will be called small letter A. We have named that triangle. So now, how do you get those values, the sides and the angles? This is what you do. You pick two lines. Okay, these two lines, these two sides should have known dimensions. You can see here the dimension for B is known, it's 7 centimeters, and A is 7 centimeters. Okay, now those two lines, where are they meeting? Okay, they are meeting at C, right here. Okay, this is where they are meeting. Where they are meeting, the angle right there where they are meeting should also be known. So meaning you need to know the angle at C as well. Okay, so therefore these two will be your sides for the formula here. Where there's B, you can plug in whichever one of the sides that you are going to be using. It doesn't matter how you plug them in. Okay, you can assign this one. It may not really be B in your question. It may be P or Q or J or K or anything else. Okay, but the idea is the sides you are picking, where they're meeting, that angle should also be known, because that angle, like in this case the 80 degrees, is what you're going to plug in here where there is A. Okay, so meaning your formula will be A is equal to 0.5 times, where there's B, you can choose either to plug in 7 or to plug in 8. It doesn't matter. Okay, so we are going to say 7 times 8 and then times sine A. Okay, where they're meeting here, the angle is at C, which is 80 degrees. So meaning here you need to put 8. Okay, if you didn't choose those those sides, let's say for example you chose the other sides, like let me just create some space, clean up here. Okay, let's say you're going to pick side C and side A. Where are these sides meeting? They're meeting at B, meaning even that angle at B should be known. If you don't know that angle, then you can't choose those sides, because what you're now going to use on one of the sides, either on B or C, in the question you're going to put 9, then the other one you're going to put 8, and then the angle you're going to use is this 60 here. So now coming to our question. Do you have any questions before I proceed? Because it's important for you to understand this. If you pick the wrong values, you end up finding a wrong answer. Okay, you need to know which values to pick in order for you to get this question correctly, because it is actually linked to the next question, which is the one finding the shortest distance. Okay, since there's no question, when it comes now to our triangle here, find the area of triangle PQR. Okay, PQR. Maybe, okay, I've noticed something. I don't know if it applies. Okay, so here you've seen their sides PQ from PQR. Let's test. We see if this actually ngatigwira. This can be easy for us to figure out this question. Okay, how many sides do you have? You have side PQ and side QR, right? If you connect PQR, you have this side PQ, and then you have QR here. According to the description in the question, find the area of triangle PQR. So meaning these are the sides you're going to pick. Okay, you have this side here, which is PQ, and then QR is that side there, and therefore the angle is the angle at the middle part. This is something that I've just noticed we can maybe use. Okay, so according to the description, they are saying find the area of triangle PQR. So the angle should be the one at the middle there, which in this case is going to be the angle at Q. Let us confirm if that works for question 1 also. Okay, let us look at question 1. Let me just create some space here before we can try and see if we can use that principle. So what are they saying? Find the area of triangle ABC. Okay, so we have A there, so this is triangle A, B, C, meaning the sides it has, we have AB and BC. These are the two sides. Okay, so are these sides known? A, B is known, we have 15 kilometers there, and then BC. BC, do we know BC? Okay, BC, did we find BC anywhere? They asked us to find AC. Okay, so AC is this one. We don't know BC, therefore we cannot. Okay, so this principle doesn't work. That is how you test when you figure out to say, can I use this principle? You test it against other questions. If it doesn't work, then you know to say, this one doesn't work. So at this point, you basically now stick to what I was saying. The sides you are going to pick, make sure where they are meeting, the angle right there where they are meeting is known. So if you look at this question, we know this side here, and we also know this side here. Okay, and these sides are meeting at Q, and the angle is also known. Therefore, we can use that information. So I'm going to say area is equal to 0.5 BC sine A. Okay, so meaning area will be equal to 0.5. What are the sides we have? Okay, we have 50.2 right here. Okay, 50.2, so I'll get that one times 50.2 times, what is the other side? The side at P. Okay, which was originally given in the question as 36.5. 36.5 times sine. Here where there's A, we need to plug in an angle. Where these two sides we have picked are meeting. Okay, that's the value we're picking, which is the angle at Q, so sine 36 there. And then for this one, you simply punch everything on your calculator. 0.5 times 50.2. So 0.5 times 50.2 times the sides 36.5, and then times sine 36. Sine 36. That one gives me 538. 538 point what? 49945. 49945 589. 4589. Okay, so then when we round it off, it's going to be 538 point. This 9 will now round the 4 upwards, so it becomes a 5. And then this is area. Okay, area is always squared, but then you need to check what unit are they using in the question. They're using meters here, you can see that is at 6.5 meters, so you're going to put meters squared. If they're using kilometers in your question, you're going to put kilometers squared. That's how you find the area of that triangle. Do we have any questions? So we keep the area here 538.5 meters squared because we need to use it in the next question. Okay, since people are following, that's good. Proceed to the next one, which is now finding the shortest distance between some points. So now the formula for finding the shortest distance, I'll not explain much on this one, I'll just give you the shortcut version. The formula for finding the shortest distance, I'll show you why it is derived so that in case you forget, you'll be able to come up with a formula. So you're basically going to use the formula for finding the area of a right angle triangle, which is 1/2 BH. Okay, but instead of saying, okay, for this one, we're going to stick with 1/2. Okay, so now what you're basically finding in this formula is the height, the value of h. So in order for you to find the value of h, you need to make h the subject. So how do you make h the subject? We're now going to say, we are going to say over a 1 here, you cross multiply. So that's going to be 2 times a there, giving you 2a. And then 1 here times bh will just give you bh. You are trying to make h the subject, so meaning the b needs to go to the left side. So you're going to divide both sides by what? By b. So that here the b's can cancel. You just remain with an h on the right side here. So meaning the formula will be 2a over b, which is the same as h is equal to 2a over b. So this is the formula we're going to be using to find the shortest distance for this particular topic, which is trigonometry. Whether we're using the cosine rule or the sine rule, we are going to be using this same formula. Okay, so if you can master it, that would be great. Okay, so now we're asked to find the shortest distance. So we're going to say h is equal to 2a over b. Remember, right from the start, I said sides are named using small letters. So whenever you see a small letter in your formula, just know that this is a side. When you see a capital letter, just know that that's an angle, but except for this one, A here is representing the area. So the area they will ask you to find in the previous question, which was this one in our case, is the same one you're going to use in this formula. So where there's A there, you're going to put the area you found, because they don't usually give you the area. They ask you to find the area, and then in the next question, which is this one we're tackling now, they will ask you to find the shortest distance, of which the formula requires that you plug in the area you found. So if your area was wrong, therefore this question becomes wrong as well. Okay, let me just check if the laptop is charging. I got a notice that battery is running low. Just a moment. Okay, charging now. Great. So that is that. In this formula, A represents the area and then B is the side. Why do you get this side? You go to your question. Okay, they are saying find calculate the shortest distance from R to PQ. So this one is your side. It's the one you're going to plug in where you have B here in your formula. So you simply go to your drawing and look at what is PQ, what is the value for PQ. And usually this side is asked in the question to say find this side. You can see here there's also PQ here. They asked us to find PQ in the first question. And that is the same side they want us to use. So again, if your PQ was wrong, this means you would have gotten a 0 here. Okay. So what is our PQ? Our PQ is basically this side here represented by R, which is 50.2 meters. So simply plug in those values in your formula. Allow me to bring it right there. So I'm going to say H is equal to 2 times, what is the area? The area is this one we saved up here, which is 538.2 meters. So there's no need for us to put units here. We simply say over the side B here. Okay, the question says PQ. So we go, what is our PQ? It's 50.2. So we plug in 50.2 there. And then we calculate. So we're going to say 2 times 538.2. 2 times 538.2. Before you punch equals, you verify that you have punched the correct values. You say equals, and then you say divided by 50.2 equals. Okay, it gives you a decimal there, which is 21.44 2231 2231 08. So when you are transferring values from your calculator to your answer sheet, don't pick them 1 1, you're wasting time. Don't pick them 4 4 2, no, at least pick them in 2s or 3s. Okay, 4 4 2, then 231 08. You are quicker that way. Remember, paper 2 you have limited time. Many people don't finish paper 2. I also didn't finish. So please utilize certain methods that are going to help you capture values quite quickly. So if you round this off, it's going to give you 21.4. What are the units? They're using meters, so you put meters there. Don't forget to put the units, and you are done. Okay, so that is basically how you find the first 3 questions of this question, and then you also know how to solve this question, so I'm not going to it. So for those who missed the last session, the first session we had on trigonometry, sine rule specifically, is this clear? If it's clear, please respond with a thumbs up, because I'm now going to give you an assignment on how to find the side and also the rest of the questions. Is it clear? If it's clear, respond with a thumbs up. Okay, I can see there's some responses. That is good. If it is clear, that is good. This question is very easy. Please make sure here you hammer everything. Okay, you can't afford to lose out on these easy marks. These questions are easy to figure out, and I want all of you to be able to answer no matter what they bring, whether they bring the cosine rule or the sine rule. Okay, so since it's clear, we now proceed to the question for today. So for this one, I try to look for questions I can use as examples. Unfortunately, this question has only been brought twice. What do I mean by this question? On the sine rule, where they're asking you to find an angle. Remember in the last session, and like you've caught up, those of you who missed, we're looking at how to find the side using the sine rule. So now, remember I said they can only ask you to find 2, either an angle or the side, and then it's either going to use the cosine rule or the sine rule. So we started by looking at the sine rule. So under the sine rule, it's either they ask you to find a side or an angle. So the majority of questions we have currently available from 2016 to 2025, okay, since the change of the curriculum, the questions under sine rule, they've asked a lot of questions on how to find the side and the side. I'm not saying this is a question that can come, but it could be maybe something that you can put at the forefront of your thinking. Maybe they might bring, because from 2016 to 2025, they've only brought 2 questions on how to find the angle using the sine rule. So who knows, they might bring this one again. Yeah, so I only have one example for you, so please pay particular attention. You already know how to solve these questions, so it's just this one. Okay, that's all you need to know how to solve. So please pay attention. I don't have enough examples. I need to give you the other question as an assignment, so that's why we only have one example on this particular question. Okay, so remember, according to the ratios, we said whatever you are finding should be on top. So what we are finding now, if you look at these ratios we have here, we said the ones up here, these ones here, are meant to be used when you're finding a side, and then these ones down here when you're finding an angle. So your sine should be on top of it should be a numerator in this case. Okay, and then the sides should be denominators, as you can see. All right, so now let us look at our question. Our question says, in the following triangle, PQ is equal to 41 centimeters, that side there, PR is 70 meters, PR is 70 there, and then angle PQR is 105. Angle PQR is 105. Again, how do you know that this is the sine rule, this is the cosine rule? Because that is the biggest question. If you are unable to determine to say here I need to use the cosine rule or the sine rule, you won't be able to answer this question. So there are certain checks you need to actually entertain. So in order for you to use the sine rule, you need to know at least one side and its corresponding angle. As you can see, both of these values are given. Okay, once you just see that, just know that here it is the sine rule, because the cosine rule doesn't work like this. When it comes to the cosine rule, just going ahead of our session, let's say you have triangle ABC. There are only 2 ways they will ask you the question. Okay, so it's either they'll give you the sides, two sides like this, just the same principle that we use when you are calculating the area. Where these two sides are meeting, they'll put an angle there. They will also give you that angle. Let's say they say this is 100, and then they won't give you an angle there, they won't also give you an angle there. Okay, when you just see something like this, just know that this is cosine rule. Okay, because you notice to say none of these values given have their corresponding values. Okay, the angle corresponding to that side is not given. Okay, the angle corresponding to that side is not given. The side corresponding to that angle is also not given. So here sine rule yakana singa 7 because you need to know at least an angle and its corresponding side. Or there should be a way you should be able to find. Maybe you using the triangle, like properties of a triangle, you can be able to find the angle corresponding to one of the sides. So this is the difference. Or sometimes they won't give you any angle, they'll just give you sides. Okay, let's say this is now 8 centimeters. Once you just see this, just know this is cosine rule. There's nothing to even think about. Okay, so when it comes to sine rule, they'll give you at least some corresponding values, angle and the side, like you have seen here. Then you know to say, aha, here it's a sine rule. Okay, when it comes to the cosine rule, it is either they'll give you this one, or they will simply give you one of the angles where these two sides they've given you are meeting. Say this is 90 degrees. Okay, where these sides are meeting, they are meeting at C, and then that angle they also give you. Then you know to say this is the cosine rule. Okay, so now we come to our question. We've already confirmed that these corresponding values have been given, therefore we can use the ratios, right? So now we look at the question. Find angle QPR. Before we start solving, we said you need to label your triangle using the triangle notation. Okay, the side corresponding with angle at P is this one, so you're going to put a small letter P there. The side corresponding with the angle at A is this one here, therefore this will be small letter R. The side corresponding to Q there is this one here, small letter Q. Okay, after we do this, we now come up with a ratio. What are we trying to find? We're trying to find angle QPR. QPR, the angle at what? At P. So P is right here. In order for us to find the angle at P, we need to know the corresponding side to P. But in this case, we don't know P as well. So this is a different way they also bring questions. What they're asking you to find, the corresponding side is not given. And then your mind might maybe get locked up, and you might think even the cosine rule can't work here. It can work. Whenever you're asked to find an angle, it is possible that you need to find this angle first and then use the properties of a triangle, so that when you add that angle and that angle, you subtract from 180, it will now give you the target angle you're trying to find. This is very important. Let me say it again, because you need to apply it in the assignment. Sometimes, according to the sine rule, remember what we said? You need to know these values like that. And then, since we are asked to find the angle at P here, meaning these are the values we need to use. The side corresponding to P and the angle at P. This is what we are trying to find. So meaning we need to know this guy also. We already know these two, the angle at Q and the side corresponding to Q. But here, we don't know this side also. So meaning we can't use those ratios. Instead, we can switch to this side here. We find the angle at R first. Once we find the angle at R, we can now use the properties of a triangle to find the angle at P. So how are we going to use these ratios that we have? We're going to say we're trying to find the angle at R, so meaning sine R will be on top to be the numerator of the first ratio. And then what is the denominator? The side comes down. Remember, we said the sides now in this case are going to be the denominators. So meaning it's just going to be small letter r. Okay, capital letter R, small letter r. Same applies to how we're doing it for the sides. And then which other ratios are we going to use? It is these ones here with known values. Sine Q, we know the angle and the side corresponding to that one. So sine is the numerator here. So we're going to say sine Q over small letter q. Then we plug in these values. Sine r, we don't know. We don't know the angle at r, but we know the side r, which is 41.6. So we're going to say 41.6 is equal to sine q there. We're going to say sine, what is q? Q is an angle. It is 105 there. So we're going to say 105, everything over side q. What is the value at q? We have 70 meters. So we're going to say 70. Again, using the same principle, we're going to say sine r is equal to, we need to move this guy to the right side, okay, the denominator. So how do you move it? You just go to the numerator and multiply it with the numerator. So it's going to be sine 105 times this guy here, 41.6. 41.6, but you maintain your denominator from up here, which is a 70, like that. So remember here there is sine, okay? I'll show you how you are going to now move the sine from the left side of the cosine to the right side of the cosine. For now, let us solve this side, okay? So allow me to push it to somewhere here, because we're going to get a long decimal. We're going to say sine r is equal to, so we punch everything up here, which is sine 105, the numerator part, sine 105, close bracket. So if your calculator doesn't automatically close the bracket, let me test if mine will give me syntax error. So sine 105 times 41.6. Okay, that gives me a value. Let me confirm by closing the bracket if it will still give me the same value. Sine 105, close bracket, times 41.6. That's 41.6, right? Okay. Gives me, okay, yeah. So you need to make sure you close the bracket. So as you are punching your values, you're going to say the same, you're going to say sine 105. For me, automatically, once I just press sine, it automatically opens a bracket. My calculator does this. And then whatever value I'll punch will come inside. So now for me to multiply with another value, I need to first of all close this bracket. Just write it properly. I need to close this bracket and then say times. Then I say 41.6. Because if you don't close the bracket, yes, it will give you a value, but that is not a correct value. So if your calculator also does this, make sure after you punch sine or cos, you close the bracket and then you say times, then you multiply with another number. Alright? So that is that. In case you are finding wrong values or different values from what I'm finding, that could be the reason. So make sure you do that. So I'm going to say sine 105 close bracket times 41.6, and then I press equals. Okay, that gives me a decimal. There's no need for me to write it down. This is paper 2, we have a calculator, so I'll just say divided by. I'll just press the division symbol on the calculator, and then I punch 70. You can see the denominator here is 70. Okay, so we punch everything here. The answer you should find should be let me punch again, sine 105 close bracket times 41.6. that gives me 40.18251437. Remember I said as we are learning, you should make sure you have a calculator in hand, and you're also punching these values. Okay, so once you punch this sine 105 times 41.6, you should get 40.18251437. Then simply press divided by. Okay, so the answer divided by 70. Okay, that should now give you this decimal 0.574. okay, 574035. Remember we said don't capture values 11 9196 9196. That way you are quicker, but then you need to confirm 0.5740 0.5740 359196 359196. You have confirmed that you have punched the correct values. Now the only thing remaining is, in order for us to find the value of r, remember r is representing an angle. This value is too small to be an angle. We need to move this sign to the right side of the equal sign. So how do you move it? Whenever this sign crosses the equal sign, it becomes an inverse. So meaning here we're going to now remain with r, and then here we are going to say sine inverse. Remember we've looked at inverse of a matrix, f inverse of something. So by now you know to say the -1 as a power means inverse. Okay, So now we're going to say sine inverse, and then this value you found up here in brackets will be 0.57403599196. Okay, so now some calculators allow you to simply say, after, like currently this answer, the 0.57403599196, is already appearing as my answer on my calculator. Some calculators allow you to simply punch the sine inverse function and then you press equals, then to give you a value. But some refuse. They need you to first of all start with sine inverse, open bracket, and then you put that decimal in the brackets in order for you to find an answer. So that is why I continue to emphasize that as we are solving, you need to be using your calculator so that you figure out what your calculator accepts. Some will accept pamene hapa nikachangache shift sine to change to inverse, okay, and then to give me the correct answer. But some will refuse. They will need you to start punching from scratch. You punch sine inverse, open bracket, then you put that value in the bracket, the decimal. That's when it will allow you to compute. Okay, so let me test mine. So now, originally on your calculator, the main function for sine is the positive part of it, just sine. Now for you to change it from sine to sine inverse, you need to use the shift button or the second function. Some of you, if you check your calculators, on the top left corner you should have shift. If there's no shift there, then you should have second function. Okay, represented just by, I think, second or something. So first you need to press shift or second function according to your calculator, and then that's when you press the sine button. You will now see the sine inverse coming up. So my calculator allows me to simply do that. I have a decimal showing as an answer, then I press shift sine, and then it gives me an angle. So the angle I'm finding now is 35.0314498. Okay, make sure you're getting that same value as well when you punch on your calculator. So all you're supposed to punch is what you are seeing up here on the screen, sine inverse 0.5740, and it goes on like that. So when I punch that on my calculator, the value of R I'm finding is 35.032103214498. Okay, 4498. So for an angle, when you round it off to one decimal place, it's going to give us 35 degrees. So remember, this is an angle, so you need to put degrees. Don't put meters or whatever units they're using there. This is an angle. Remember, angles are represented by a capital letter. Okay, so having found that angle, we can proceed to the next question. Do we have any questions at this point before we proceed? Remember, we just have one example for this question. Are there any questions? Advanveka, you can respond with thumbs ups. I don't even know if that's correct English, but yeah, I'm sure you get it. Are we clear? Okay, nice. It's good that people are following. We proceed now to the next question. So you've seen the same format again. They ask you to find either the side or an angle. Then you ask what is the area? What is the shortest distance? Same format. How can you fail to get a distinction? Math is simple. Okay, you just need to practice more. Solve more. That's how you become better. That's how you become. That's how you are now able. That's how you will be able to identify these patterns. You notice to say the pattern is always the same. You ask me to find the angle or the side, and then the area, then the shortest distance. Then to now to my bonus questions to avoid Aksogo. Okay, so the more you solve, the more you figure these things out. We now go to the area of a triangle. Remember, we said for the area of the triangle, the sides you pick, where they are meeting, the angle should also be known. So okay, sorry, my network was disrupted. Are you able to see my screen? If you're able to see my screen, just give me a thumbs up. Okay, great. So now remember, the angle we are finding is the angle at R, which is 35. But the question is asking us to find the angle at what? At P. So we're not yet done, but we are nearly done. How do we find the angle at P? We now have three angles from this triangle. So we simply add these angles. 105 plus 35 is 140. Okay, 180 minus 140 it gives us 40 degrees. So meaning the angle at P is just 40 degrees, and we are done. Now we are done. Okay, the angle at R is at 5 degrees. The angle at P is 40 degrees. According to the property for triangles, when you add all the interior angles, you should get what? 180. So 105 plus 35 is 140. 140 plus the 40 at P, here you get 180. We are now done. So the angle QPR is 40 degrees. Now we can proceed to this one. So I was saying, for this one, the sides you pick, make sure where they're meeting, the angle is also known. So what sides do we know? Okay, we know this side and we also know this side. Where they are meeting, we also know the 40 degrees there. So we are good to go. We can now proceed to the next question, which is basically finding the area of this triangle. So let me just create some space. Okay. All right. So remember the formula for finding the area of a triangle. Scalene triangle is area is equal to 0.5 BC sine A. This formula does not change whether you're dealing with sine rule or cosine rule. It is uniform. Sima change up if you put cos A. No, that is wrong. This is the standard formula for finding the area of a scalene triangle when you're dealing with any question on trigonometry. So we said these B and C, these values represent sides. So what sides are we using? We're using this one and the 70 meters right there. So we're going to say 0.5 times 70 times, what's the other one? 41.6. Okay, sine A. Where these two sides are meeting, what is the angle there? That's why we need to plug, that's the angle we need to plug in there. So where they are meeting at P. The angle at P is 40. So I'm going to say sine 40. So area will therefore be equal to, you punch now, you're going to say 0.5 times 70 times 41.6 times sine 40. You confirm whether what you have punched is correct. 0.5 times 70 times 41.6 times sine 40. Let's see. Sine 40 equals, okay, gives me 935 as the area. 935.898 7597. Okay, we round it off. We're going to have 935 point, this 9 will round off this 8 upwards to 9. Okay, that is what we are going to have. But this is area, the units they're using is meters, so we need to put meters squared. Okay, let us save it somewhere. We'll need it in the next question. Remember, area is 935.9 meters squared. We can now create space here. You can now see how simple this question is becoming. When you go to cosine rule again, you'll be asked to find the area, and you use the same formula we are using. Okay, so the only thing you need to now master is how to find the angle using the sine rule, and how to find the side using the sine rule. Then you're done with the sine rule. Then you go to the cosine rule, also how to find an angle, how to find the side. Then you're good to go. Area of a triangle, shortest distance, everything else is the same. Okay, we proceed now to the next question. Okay, so we've done these two. I found, pick my marker. So I found the angle there, the area. Now we need to find the shortest distance. So remember we said you need to, it would be better if you can master this formula. 2A over B. Okay, where A is representing the area. So 2 times, what is the area? We found 935, and this side I wrote 953. You see how mistakes are made in an exam. It's supposed to be 935. So 935.9. That's the area we found. Over B is the side they mentioned in the question. The shortest distance from Q to PR. What is PR? PR What is that side? It is 70 meters. So it's going to be 70 down here. So H is equal to, you punch now. What is 2 times 935? 2 times 935.9. That gives me a decimal 1871.8. Then I say divided by 70. That gives me 26.74. So the height is therefore going to be 26.74. What units are they using? They're using meters in the question, so I'll say meters. And we are done. Do we have any questions? We are pretty much done with sine rule, lesson 1 and lesson 2. Finding the side and finding an angle. Are we good to go? Please respond. You know the drill. Okay. Okay, it's good that it's clear. So now on the assignment I'll give you, like I mentioned, there are only 2 questions from 2016 to 2025 on how to find an angle using the sine rule. So the assignment I'll give you 2 questions on how to find a side. Okay, that's under the sine rule, and then 1 question for this one where you're asked to find an angle using the sine rule. So just 3 questions. Then in the next session we'll now look at the cosine rule. I think we'll start with finding okay, we'll see. I'll confirm which one we're going to start with, whether finding an angle or a side. Okay, so that one will also just do 2 sessions. So make sure you don't miss any session. It's easier for you to follow online, like live like this, where you can ask a question where you're left behind, and like just you watching the pre-recorded version of the live session. So please make time. Okay, the exam is very close. You're just remaining with less than a month, so please make sure you make time, and yeah, you'll be able to get that distinction you want. Okay, so that is all I had for you in this session. Thank you for your time. I'll see you in the group as I send the assignment.